This is Roadshow News Recap. Our top story of the week comes from Dodge. The brand is set to unveil an all-electric muscle car concept next year, so that's a reason to be excited. We've got details about the all-electric Lucid Air Dream Edition sedan. The car will offer either 500 plus miles of range or 1,111 horsepower. You get a choice between those two. Volkswagen updated its Jetta and Jetta Gli sedans for 2022, and there's some welcome enhancements to both of these cars, even if they're not necessarily the most exciting thing around. And then we've got pricing for the Mazda MX-30 all-electric utility vehicle. And I'll tell you this, it starts somewhere between $47 and $102,657,026. How much exactly? We'll tell you a little bit later in the show. But first, happy Friday, everyone. And Sean, editor, our very own news editor here at Roadshow. So good to see you again, my friend.
Oh, yes. Always good to see you. Happy to be here, Craig. Happy Friday. Thanks for watching with us. And thanks for watching over the weekend if you are. We have a good show planned. And if you like it, you should like and subscribe to Roadshow News because we do this every Friday and we got lots of other good stuff on this channel. So thanks for coming along for the ride.
Absolutely. I second all of those points, Sean. Like and subscribe if you can, and thanks for joining us live. But our biggest story, it's all about Dodge. Now, we talked about something similar a couple weeks ago, so apologies if the artwork is the same this week, but there is actually different news, so don't stop watching if you think we're rehashing what came out a little while ago. But Dodge is set to show an all-electric concept car next year. We don't know exactly when next year, but we're expecting this should be an EV muscle car. The Dodge brand is obviously known for performance vehicles, and as the company transitions to electric, like the rest of the automotive industry, they're going to introduce an electric performance car as well. We might be having some technical difficulties right now. I don't know, Sean and Evan, can you hear me right now?
Yeah, Craig, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. Because I can see appears the feed is frozen. Just wanted to make sure. But yes, all electric muscle car concept we're expected to see from Dodge next year. And this comes from an automotive news interview that they did at the Roadkill Nights Powered by Dodge event last week over on Woodward Avenue in Michigan here. Apparently, brand CEO Tim Kuniskis is quoted as saying, "Dodge is a muscle car first. And by the way, it happens to have electrification to make it better." So whatever that means, but it certainly sounds like the brand is going to be introducing some sort of electrified performance car. Sean, what is your take?
Yeah, we thought this would be a really good one to talk about just because Dodge is such a curious brand, you know, like Dodge and Chrysler. It's like, you feel like at any moment, not at any moment, but you could easily just like sit down with a piece of paper and like draw out your like dream portfolio. And it feels like it could be true because it just feels like it's wide open for Dodge and Chrysler. I just banged my elbow. Ouch. But anyway, no, I think it's super interesting to see Dodge take this pivot. And we talked a while ago on one of these shows that Stellantis, which is their parent automaker now, that was between Fiat Chrysler and France's PSA group, they gave each brand 10 years to show their worth. So, like, you know that before that even came out, people at Dodge and Chrysler and I mean any brand under Stellantis were already working to be like, okay, what can we do to reposition our brand? And as you noted, Craig, as the industry goes electric, I mean, what's Dodge going to do other than try to embrace electrification to stay not relevant? I don't think that's the right word here because, you know, there are still hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that still want to buy a Hemi Charger Challenger, but just to be able to survive, you know? So, and we're going to see those first steps next year with some sort of plug-in hybrid. We don't know what that's going to be. And then also a electric concept car, which it's, you know, we're taking an educated guess. It might be a concept version of what you're seeing teaser footage of. This is a vehicle they showed during an EV Day media event that's coming for 2024. So hopefully we get to see something of this car because it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot of mega powered EVs coming out. We're going to get to the Lucid Air Dream Edition here very soon. The Tesla Model S Plaid, of course, and a number of others offer huge power, which is a natural for a muscle car, which is what Dodge is really focusing on as a brand. And in that teaser you just saw, the car has all-wheel drive. You can tell because all four wheels are smoking. So that is pretty exciting as well, because you get in something like, a Challenger Hellcat or something, which has a ton of power, but it only goes to the rear wheels. So it can be a challenge sometimes to put that to the pavement. But with all-wheel drive, it becomes a lot easier. So be fascinating to see what Dodge shows. Do we have any idea? Because they're talking about an all-electric concept car and then a plug-in hybrid. Do we have any idea what that plug-in might be? Because plug-in technology is a bit more accessible, obviously, because you could take an existing vehicle and sort of modify the drivetrain rather than ripping everything up to go all electric. Any thoughts, Sean?
Yeah, I feel the safe bet is a Durango plug-in, but also I feel like Dodge could easily just throw a plug-in hybrid powertrain at a Charger or a Challenger, and that would be totally on brand too, because plug-ins and standard hybrids, they're not just about efficiency anymore. Engineers have taken these propulsion methods and found like, hey, we can add a lot more torque or a lot more power or better acceleration and stuff like that. So there's definitely merit to think of, doesn't the Dodge Demon have some sort of mode where it chills things and it boosts power for a few moments? What if you did that with some sort of battery system where it's ready to unleash and then you have to wait before it's ready to go again, some sort of regenerative system. I don't know. If you can't tell, I'm not an engineer. So that probably sounds like complete garbage to anybody who knows more about internal systems like that. But I'm just saying, I wouldn't discount some sort of plug-in Charger or Challenger, even though the Durango seems like a safer bet.
Yeah. Glancing at the YouTube chat, Lasik says, too bad we will first see a Ram ProMaster in 2023 on an EV architecture over the electrified Dodge. So the ProMaster series is getting an EV version, it sounds like, much like the E-Transit at Ford. So, I mean, it'd be unfortunate if the commercial van electric vehicle came out before the exciting, fun, cool Dodge variant. But that's kind of the way it goes, right? I mean, you've got to...
Right.
You got to make money selling cars before you can have fun. And I don't know, but there might be more profits selling a van than a Charger or a Challenger, but we'll see.
I don't know. I'm just going to say, to ping pong off of that, the Charger Challenger platform dates back to Daimler days. So that platform has probably paid for itself a bajillion times over. So basically at this point, I feel like whatever new they toss at it, there's probably very minimal sunken cost. And then after that, it's just printing money. Anyone who goes and buys even a Charger Challenger with the Pentastar V6, that stuff's been paid for. So I feel like that's just a bonus. That, hey, we sold a V6 coupe in today's world, gold star.
All right. Yes, right. You get a gold star. Good job.
Something
team.
like
Slow
that.
Clap.
Yeah.
Slow clap.
Yeah, something like that. Oh yeah. But
exciting news from Dodge, but much less exciting news from our friends at Volkswagen.
Yeah, definitely. Pivoting to something far less exciting is the 2022 Volkswagen Jetta. And if there is something exciting, the Jetta GLI, which is basically a Golf GTI in a sedan form. But Volkswagen dished out some updates for this week. It's a mild refresh, so there's nothing substantially different here on the outside in terms of design. There's some new bumpers. The grille gets a little redone. And I'm just going to offshoot, the grille isn't that big of a change, but it looks like it's jutting forward so much more, especially on the GLI, and it looks like a fat lip or something. It looks kind of weird. I don't know. Very strange. Otherwise, I actually think the Jetta's a pretty handsome sedan. Like, it's so inoffensive. I think that design will age very well. It's like just a clean design. It's very German, is what I would say. But yeah, overall, it's
Inoffensive is the perfect word for it, really.
Yeah, it really is. It, maybe not so much the new Civic, but like the previous generation Civic, that was pretty expressive. So it's like, did you want a Jetta or like this Civic that looks like it's a Japanese Gundam or something? It transforms. I don't know. But it also gets LED head restyled lights and all that good stuff back there. GLI gets proper LED projector beams. And you get a nice range of wheel selections between 16 and up to 18 inches for the GLI, because that's the sportier model. Fill out those wheel wells, Craig.
Right.
I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
No, I just said that's right. They fill out the wheels, those giant 16s. No, 18s are the biggest.
But once upon a time, a 16-inch wheel was a huge deal. That was like a very premium option.
It was, especially if it was an alloy wheel and not like a stamped steely. Although I am still partial to steelies because they look cool and they're functional. But
you could tell we're taking an off ramp here, but yeah, steel wheels are so cool still on certain vehicles. Like the new Maverick. The Maverick looks really cool with the base steel wheels.
Oh yeah, hell yeah!
I think so. I think so for sure.
The new Maverick is going to be a blockbuster. Not because of the wheels necessarily, but other reasons. We've talked about it before. But yes.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, back to the Jetta, everybody. The bigger change is under the hood because Volkswagen took out a 1.4 turbo, and in its place, there's a 1.5 turbo now. I think Craig generously joked that this was like a big block, like Volkswagen's big block engine now under the Jetta's hood. So you got a little bit more oomph here, 158 horsepower, 184 pound-feet of torque. And Volkswagen says that's distributed better throughout the rev range. So, hopefully it doesn't feel like all the torque is down low. And once you get on an on-ramp, you're wheezing for power or something like that. But yeah, there's a lot of other mechanical changes going on here that, once again, I am not an engineer and I probably couldn't explain very well. In fact, Craig would do a better job at that. But with all of those mechanical changes, we're looking at a 0 to 60 time in like the low 8-second range. So long story short, don't take your standard Jetta. Well, yeah, I was just going to say, but long story short, don't take your Jetta to the drag strip. But I mean, we come from a time when supercars used to strive for like 7-second 0 to 60 times, 6-second 0 to 60 times. The fact that a 2022 Jetta is closing in on that ballpark is a wild timeline, in my opinion.
With a 1.5 liter engine, like that's nothing.
Yeah, it's really wild. Really, really wild. I don't know. I just keep I'm looking at the car here as it rolls by, and it's just, I don't know, something about that front clip redesign. It's interesting, to say the least, for me. I don't know. It's just not something about it feels
bad, because interesting damning with faint praise.
No, I'm not trying to give it a backhanded compliment, because I think the GLI is cool. Like kudos to Volkswagen for still building like a sports sedan. I mean, it's not all-wheel drive, but you could technically cross-shop this with a Subaru WRX and get, sort of the same-ish vibe. I mean, not really, but at the end of the day, they're sports sedans and they're affordable. The WRX and obviously the STI would be way, way more. But I don't know, just something about it it feels off for me. I will say, though, the interior looks quite nice. It took a lot from the new GTI and the standard Golf that Volkswagen doesn't sell here anymore. There's a digital cluster that's now standard. The infotainment's kind of like tilted a little bit more towards the driver. The new Volkswagen badge is inside. It still looks very just like sterile is like what I like to describe Volkswagen interiors as, because they're just, I just feel like they're missing some sort of pizzazz. I don't know about you, Craig.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. You said inoffensive earlier, and now you described the interior as sterile. I think those are totally fair descriptors for this car. They're also part of the reason it's going to age well, I think, because it's not a flash in the pan design. It's sort of conservative and laid and very simple, and it may not be exciting in the here and now, but it should look good 20 years from now, where you can't necessarily say the same thing about a Prius.
Yeah, funny thing. There was actually a Prius Prime and a standard Prius driving in front of me the other day, and I can't remember the last time I saw like both of those back ends like side by side to see how different they actually are. Anyway, that's super random. Aside from all of these changes for the Jetta, you get the IQ Drive suite, which is your all sorts of active safety and driver assist features. How could you not sell a car with that kind of stuff today? It's becoming more and more prominent. Yeah, no, you can't. And even with all of that, we don't have final prices, but look for the new Jetta Gli to still start around $22,000, which is pretty cheap in a world where the average car is like 41 grand.
Yes. So the new Jetta, just about $22,000, nearly half the average transaction price there, which makes it a pretty good value. So that's the advantage. You've got a car that they didn't do like a clean sheet redesign on. They didn't make too many changes, and they can keep the price low probably because of that. So
yeah,
if you're not,
and especially
don't have your heart set on an SUV, if you can live with a sedan, try the Jetta.
Yeah, I mean, and in a world where the Passat is dying, it's going away. Believe it or not, the Jetta accounts for 29% of Volkswagen's U.S. sales. That is no small number. So Volkswagen's still moving a lot of these cars.
Absolutely. So yeah, people, and brand recognition for the Jetta too. People know what a Jetta is. They know who builds the Jetta. It's sort of like the Civic. Everybody knows it's a Honda. Everybody knows it's a small car. So that's the same stands true for Volkswagen here. So they can't get rid of the Jetta. It would be a big loss for the brand, I think. But if you like what you see, the new Jetta and GLI should be available a little bit later this year, likely around about the November timeframe. So if you're shopping for a car or you want a sedan, you don't want to spend too much.
Pick one up for Black Friday.
There you go. And check your local VW dealer in a couple months because they ought to be there. Moving right along, though, as Sean mentioned earlier, make sure you like and subscribe to the Roadshow News channel. That way you never miss out on any of our videos that come out, whether it's the live show every Friday, which, again, we do at 3 p.m. Eastern. So we do wish you could join us for that broadcast. And, of course, interact with us in the chat. We love getting your questions or comments. But like and subscribe so you never miss anything, including some of the short news tidbits we've been putting up as well as breaking stories come out. So, like, subscribe, ring the bell, do what you can. We appreciate it. Thank you for watching. If you're joining us live, thank you for watching, of course, if you are viewing the recorded version of this program. But moving along, very exciting news from Lucid.
Mm-hmm.
This is cool stuff.
Oh, yeah. This is basically what I feel like a next generation Tesla Model S should be. And maybe for good reason, because the head guy in charge over at Lucid had a lot to do with the original Model S. So he knows a thing or two about building luxury EVs. But we received details about the Lucid Air Dream Edition. They had already announced this Dream Edition, but they now kind of reconfigured things as they're gearing up to deliver their first vehicles later this year. And we now have basically a fork for buyers who reserved a Dream Edition. You can get the Dream Performance Edition or the Dream Range Edition. Very boring names, and they say exactly what you...
Very important.
They are very descriptive. Yes, but I was going to say, they tell you exactly what you're getting if you pick one or the other, and you can only pick one. You can't get both. The Performance Edition, you're looking at 1,111 horsepower is what Lucid is saying there from this electric sedan. If you opt for the range, Dream Range Edition, they're saying 517 miles of range is what you'll get from the vehicle. So obviously some software and engineering tweaks to be done. Do you want power or do you want range? And also 517 miles of range, by the way, like overshoots the Model S long range by over 100 miles. So we should note the EPA hasn't tested these cars yet, but Lucid has said this quote for a while now. So I would think they're pretty, comfortable with this car is going to get over 500 miles of range. And I don't know how much is too much range, Craig. I think we've talked about this before.
I would love 517. Obviously, as we've talked about, as charging infrastructures get built out, the need for an EV with mega range becomes less and less important. So maybe there's a day when 125 miles of range will be enough because there's a high-speed charger on every street corner, like there are gas stations. So we're not there yet, but like 517 is a damn impressive number. But what's also impressive, with the range edition of the Air Dream, you still get 993 horsepower. So
yeah,
what's the problem? Like,
yeah, I know.
Enough. Trust me.
We received this news on a very short turnaround, and when I was reading through it, I was like, "Really, you don't like that? That's your compromise right there. Is take the range because you're still getting almost 1,000 horsepower. Like, I don't think anyone's going to be sweating 110 horsepower or whatever the math works out to be if you don't take the performance edition.
Yeah, but if you do take the performance, you still get, they claim, again, estimated, not EPA official, but it sounds like 475 miles of range. So, like, you can't go wrong either way. And I bet you the performance difference between these two cars is like negligible. Whether you want 0 to 60 or quarter mile times, I bet they're going to be within just like a hair of each other. So why?
Yeah,
why sweat it?
Yeah, no, I definitely, if I had, these cars cost $169,000, everybody. So again, just like last week, I think it was, when we're talking about, would you rather have an Escalade or a Navigator? And we're like, oh, but it doesn't matter because I can't afford either of them. I'm definitely not buying a Lucid Air Dream Edition because that's just not in the budget. But regardless, you're not going wrong either way. So again, I don't know, people could wipe their tears with their blank checks if they have to make this hard decision or something like that. But
they can't make it this. Well, I guess because if you want to get one, you can't, because as you said, they're sold out. But this is the choice that people that have reserved one get to make, right?
Yes, that's true. But the fallback on all of this is if you didn't get a Dream Edition and you don't even get the option to choose the performance or range performance editions of these two vehicles, there's still the Grand Touring model coming, which will be continuous production. It's not limited edition or anything like that. And Lucid still thinks that one's going to do 517 miles of range. And it's still going to have like a crap ton of power. So really no one's losing. This vehicle feels more like you want to be a first adopter. You want the very first. That's definitely been a thing with technology, like the people lining up for the new iPod and stuff like that years and years ago. And I think that's starting to spill over into the automotive sector because cars are just becoming so chock full of technology, especially with EVs. And I think that would be an interesting discussion for another time, how that they seem to be kind of converging on paths. But again, I said another time, we won't do that right now.
Well, just to back up for a second, you said nobody is losing. I would disagree, Sean, because I would say actually Elon Musk and Tesla are losing, because I love everything about the Lucid Air. It looks amazing. The interior is beautiful. The performance it promises should be crazy. The range is excellent. Obviously, you have to get up and see one in person. You have to drive one and experience it. But I love pretty much everything about this car from what I've seen. So if I were Elon Musk, if I were working at Tesla, I would be concerned. Very concerned.
Yeah, Lucid fell off the map for a while because they were basically like out of money. And then they got some pretty hefty investments a while ago that allowed them to move forward. And ever since then, they've come out pretty strong and have stayed pretty much on message, being like, here's our car, here's what it's going to have, and more details to come. It hasn't been wishy-washy. Like, they clearly have had a plan and they just needed the funds to see it through. Now comes the hard part of actually building production cars, making sure the quality is there and that the first owners get a very good vehicle for a chunk of change. I mean, $170,000.
You don't want the bumpers to fall off or the battery to catch on fire. That's not a good look.
Yeah. No, and that's what I was just going to say, because for $170,000, you could go buy a lot of other cars, or like 6 cars, depending
like
on your price range.
Corollas, if you wanted.
There you go. And you could start your own rental service.
Tuesday, I want a red Corolla.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just going to, or you could
Wednesday.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that. Start a rental service, vanilla on demand.
There you go.
It's something like that.
In the chat.
Yeah.
Lasik says, who is supplying Lucid's batteries? I believe that's LG Chem is their supplier.
Yeah, it's LG Chem, yes.
There you go. See, Sean is the actual brains behind the operation.
Yeah.
Arnie Asada says, I can count on one hand the number of times in a year I would need more than 100 miles. And that's what we were saying. Like, how often do you take a road trip? Most of the time when you're driving, you're commuting to work. Most of the time, that's probably going to be less than 50 miles one way. So if you've got a level 2 charger installed in your garage or parking your carport or whatever, and you can plug the vehicle in every night, 100 miles, 200 miles is going to be more than enough for most people, but everybody likes to overbuy, right? That's why we see one guy commuting to work in a Suburban because, he goes up to the lake 3 times a year with his family, right? Meanwhile, let's drive this 18,000-pound SUV, and I'm the only one in it.
That's a really good comparison, actually. I really enjoy that. The people who, buy something like a Tahoe or a Suburban, and it's because they only use it 3 times a year for what it's really, really good at, like what its original function and purpose was for. So yeah, like maybe it's like, why do you need 500 miles of range when you probably only ever need that once every couple years?
Yeah.
I mean, because even if
your employer has chargers too, you can charge while you're at work. So you gain all the range back conceivably that you spent to get to work. So
yeah. I mean, really, unless you're driving across country, and really, we have to think, Craig, this is like kind of a problem more specific to North America, because like in the UK, France, Germany, those are much, much smaller countries. So like you can get further very easily. You could be driving for 5 hours in Michigan and you're not even in Illinois yet, or Indiana, or Ohio, whatever, like. So this is a very specifically North American problem, I think, for EVs, because we do have more space to cover. And a lot of people do take road trips. And I'm not saying Europeans or anyone else in the world don't take road trips, but I think it's a uniquely North American thing that it's like, I want to drive from, I'm in Northeast Ohio. I want to go to Tucson, Arizona. You could do that, but with an EV, that's a lot harder.
Yep, absolutely. Speaking of range, we got to talk about the 2022 Mazda MX-30. I don't know. What is it? Is it a crossover? Is it a hatchback? I'm not entirely sure. It sort of blurs the lines to me.
It's cool. I really like it. I think it's a really cool looking car. I just know I'm getting ahead of the game here, but Craig is very disappointed in how far this little EV can go.
Yeah, just they're claiming 100 miles of range. Like,
just 100.
Is that a joke? I mean, it jives with what I was just talking about a moment ago, not needing mega range necessarily, but 100 miles, just the optics of that are terrible. Like, I wouldn't expect a new EV to come out these days with less than 200 miles of range. This is half of it.
Yeah, and I know I'm kind of skipping around here, but the thing that strikes me with that is if this car had 100 miles of range and it costs like 25 grand, I'd get that.
Hmm.
This car costs, I want to read it correctly, $34,645. And that includes $1,100 in a destination fee. You
Hmm.
could also get a Chevy Bolt EUV for about the same price and get,
Hmm.
200, what is that rated at? 250 something to something.
Something like that. Isn't the standard
Yeah,
Bolt like 269, 259, something like that?
something like that. And the Bolt EUV is just a little bit less because it's a little bit of a
Yeah.
chonkier thing. But anyway, I just don't understand where this car is supposed to be positioned because it feels too expensive with too little range.
The range should be at least double that for even for what you're paying. The price
Yeah.
I don't think is that bad compared to the average new vehicle transaction price. But for what you're getting, like 100 miles? Huh? Is that a typo? Is it supposed to be 300? Because it doesn't make
No,
sense.
it's definitely not because Mazda has maintained that they were going to put a small battery in this, and that's what this car was going to be, was a very low range EV. And before we had prices, it was, I think, kind of assumed that, oh, it's going to be like a more affordable one. And like at that rate, like the interior looks awesome. It has sustainable materials inside. I think there's cork in there. Like it looks really good. It's got those nifty like RX-8 suicide doors. Like it's a cool car, but then you're like, oh, it's $37,000. Like when we say the
Mhm.
MSRP plus destination, we're not including tax, and you're gonna creep closer to 40 grand all of a sudden.
Yeah, especially
And
if
then
you get
you're
in the F&I office and they ask you for the etched windows and the undercoating,
yes,
and you mistakenly say yes.
yeah, yes, the carpet mat
But yeah,
protectors. And so for some reason, depending on where you go, they'll offer you a smoker's package, even though we haven't had ashtrays in cars for like 15 years now. All
another
sorts
thing,
of
100
random
miles of
things.
range, the performance is weak. It's only 143 horsepower and 200 pound-feet of torque. Like, I'm sure that's fine, and especially if it's used as like an urban runabout, which is probably what they designed it to be, it's
Mhm.
fine. But again, the Lucid gives you 1,000 plus, like without much effort. So like this is just a very much a head scratching car to me in so many ways.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just kind of goofy. It is a bit of a head scratcher. I was excited for this car when I first saw it before we got a lot more details. And now it feels just a little lost. And it's weird because there are quite a few EVs on sale. I guess there aren't that many like actually more affordable EVs. They all kind of hover around like the mid 30s kind of thing if you're looking for something a little bit more attainable. But yeah, maybe it'll make more sense because we know that there's a range extender version coming with a little
Yes.
rotary engine. That could make a lot more sense if you do put some gas in it and then that rotary engine kicks on and it doesn't directly drive the wheels. It acts as a generator for,
Yeah.
the batteries. So that way you're still humming along. That could make a lot more sense. We don't have any range estimates for what that might do, but yeah, as just a plain old EV, it's a little, I don't know. I don't want to say disappointing because we haven't driven it or anything like that, but on paper, it's just a bit of an oddball.
Exactly. It'll be interesting with the range extender too, because obviously Mazda has a very rich history with rotary engines, and it's kind of cool that they're going with one in the MX-30 here. But I wonder, like, rotary engines have a lot of issues. They burn oil. They can have trouble
They're
with the
quirky.
rotors in there. Yeah. So is a rotary engine more efficient for an application like this than a piston engine would be? I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know the answer.
I
Because
I don't know.
when you're using it as a range extender, you can have the engine running at basically a constant RPM, right? You don't need to have it rev up and down like you would if it were driving the wheels. So you can have that engine tuned to be as efficient as possible to run in the most efficient rev range, most for the application because all it's doing is charging the battery. And I still wonder, is a rotary more efficient than a piston engine? I would think
you
not,
would think,
because piston engines can be pretty efficient.
yeah. I mean, like totally what you said. Rotary engines are inherently not very efficient at all. So you would think that engineers took a hard look at this and found a way to make it work better for this application before being like, heck yeah, we're going to build it. I can't see a company like Mazda, which in the grand scheme of things is pretty small, taking a big bet on bringing back the rotary engine as a range extender without making sure it can like recoup those kinds of engineering costs and making sure it makes sense. I would hope that that's what has happened behind the scenes and they found a way to make it work. And in the process, they get to cash in on like their heritage, because they've built a lot of really cool cars with rotary engines. It's the thing I think aside from like, spirited driving dynamics, Mazda's best known for is, the rotary engine.
100%. We will have to wait and see, though, because the plug-in hybrid with that rotary should be offered a little bit, I understand, a little bit after the initial MX-30 comes out, the electric version. Speaking of the electric model, though, if you hook it to a 50 kilowatt level 3 DC fast charger, you can charge that battery to 80% capacity in about 36 minutes. So it's not too bad. But again, it's only 35.5 kilowatt hours, I believe, and 100 miles of range. So you're not getting all that much. But again, this is probably more of a city car, more of an urban runabout than something you're going to jump in and drive cross country in, because that would be pretty inconvenient.
Yes. And it's only on sale in California to start, and then it will slowly make its way across the U.S. That is Mazda's plan right now. Unless that changes. But yeah, right now it's only going to be in California, and that might make the most sense since that has the most robust charging infrastructure probably in the entire U.S.
Totally.
Yes.
And plans probably will change because they were going to build a diesel.
Who knows? Everything's fluid. I feel like we're just in an era of things are changing so quickly. But aside from these topics that we cover here today, there was a ton more that we weren't able to get to because we're running out of time here again. We had a super in-depth piece that our editor-in-chief, Tim Stevens, did on iRacing. That is that racing simulator some of you may be aware of, and maybe you play it. He got a really in-depth look, went and saw the folks down at iRacing. Very, very cool piece. We have something about how Hot Wheels are made. It takes a lot of technology, turning an actual car into a Hot Wheel. That's a super cool read you should check out. And you can buy our Jeep Wrangler in pink now. And that's all I'll say. You'll have to go to the roadshow.com to check that out. But yes, a pink Wrangler.
Yes. So head on over to the roadshow.com right now for all those stories, as well as the stories we covered in this episode of Roadshow News Recap, plus a whole lot more news hits and vehicle reviews and first drives and videos. The whole kit and caboodle is there, the roadshow.com, so give it a look-see if you got the time. But at that point, I think we're just about done here. Sean, thank you so much for your help and expertise this week.
You know it. Thank you, Craig, for being here. The chat is always a good time.
It is. And thank you, Evan Miller, who is back this week. He was traveling. I'm not sure where he went. Might have been parole. Might have had to, do some community service or something, but he's back on the switcher taking care of the technical stuff on the back end so that we can have a broadcast for you fine folks to watch live or recorded. And of course, thank you all for tuning in today to Roadshow News Recap, where we dissect and discuss the most important automotive news stories from the past week. As we've mentioned, you can join us for the live broadcast every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern right here on the Roadshow News YouTube channel. Plus, we broadcast on Facebook, so check that out if you prefer to use that service. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Take care and have a great weekend.